In this video, I chat with experienced sim golfer Phil as he talks us through everything about his home golf simulator setup. Now, I make no apologies for the length of this video, because the amount of knowledge and experience that Phil has is invaluable for anyone interested in home golf simulators. There's timestamps in the description below if you're interested in certain topics. But I highly recommend that you just stick this interesting and entertaining conversation on and enjoy everything that he has to say. Right, Phil, thank you very much for coming back onto the Handicap Golf channel. You're always welcome on here. And thank you very much for offering to show everybody your home golf simulator as well. Now, Phil, everybody, is a very experienced sim golfer, so he will definitely be able to share some amazing insights into the simulator golf world for us today. So, Phil, how are we doing?
Not too bad, and thank you for welcoming me back. I enjoyed the last time we caught up on on YouTube. That was a lot of fun. I actually missed half your intro because it did cut out, but it's fine. Let's get on with it. But before I even do, I just want to say, when I was waiting to log in, there was a cheeky comment that came up that said, "We're about to join the session, but let's check your hair crossed out, camera and mic," which I did think was your wording, but you've said it isn't.
No, I know what you mean now. I have seen that before, and yeah, it definitely wasn't me, that mate.
Spot on. But yeah, I'm doing okay. Hope you are.
Fantastic. Yeah, so just to start off with, Phil, can you please just tell everybody whereabouts you live and how long have you owned a golf simulator?
I live up near Ripondon, West Yorkshire. Been up here for probably about 10 years now, in and around various locations. Only been in the current location, which is a farmhouse with a kind of barn for the sim that we'll get into, for the last year. Probably my first sim, I actually thought I'd been doing it for 10 years. And when I look back, I searched for GC2 in my email. And the very first identification of GC2 in my email was 2015. So I'm not quite the old timer that I thought I was compared to some of the other guys. But 2015 is when I will have attempted to build my first simulator.
Brilliant. Now, you've got your own YouTube channel, Phil, and I've got to say a big thank you to you personally, because when I was building my golf simulator, yours was one of the YouTube channels that I come across, one of the first ones that I came across, and your videos helped me out massively when it came to like building your enclosure, hanging your impact screen, all just the generic knowledge about golf simulators, setting one up in your own home. So it was absolutely amazing. Now, if anybody hasn't seen Phil's channel, then type in Hybrid Me on YouTube and go and check it out, because if you're starting out your home golf simulator, you've got to check out Phil's channel. It's amazing. So thanks very much for that, pal.
That's all right. You need to avoid all the junk of me just stinking it up on the golf course and try and find the educational videos. I started doing a playlist, but never got to the end of it. And to be honest, you may have been later starting on YouTube, but you've flown past me in subscribers, and you do a very, very professional job of producing everything, editing everything. I'm turn the camera on and wing it and turn it off at the end. I mean, I think one of my streams I went through 2 bottles of wine, and I think it was about 2 hours. It was an A to Z of sim golf, and if anybody has watched that from start to finish, it will be extraordinary.
I've seen it, mate. I've seen it, and I started watching it, and then I think I got the bits of knowledge. I got the bits of knowledge that I needed, and then I was done. But yeah, I know which video you're on about. I didn't know you'd had a couple of bottles of wine though.
Oh, I was powering through it. I think I might have been on to the third by the end of it.
Right, mate. So, what made you get into simulator golf?
There's 2 stories here. Well, two true stories. One of which I'm a bit ashamed of because it involves lying to my wife, but I'm sure many of us sim golfers have done so. But we'll go with the first one, which is I was never actually that much into golf. As a kid, my dad would take me to the driving range occasionally. I remember the awe of being in the clubhouse here. I grew up in Northampton. It was Delapre Golf Complex we used to go to. And I used to love going in the pro shop and just seeing how many different coloured tees there were and balls and clubs. And it was like, even though we weren't buying anything, I used to just love hanging out around that place. And then I can only remember playing maybe 4 or 5 rounds of golf as a kid. I didn't then play until probably after university. I certainly didn't play at university. and a casual golf, I'd play like 3 rounds a year maybe. And would generally do that. I did probably once every couple of years play golf up until about the age of what would be now 30, late 30s, and then just realised that I was a really, really bad golfer. I was incredibly nervous golf. I'm quite a nervous person in general, and I
I'm
mean
not
bad
having
enough
that.
that swing and a miss. Oh, swing and a miss is like back before I built the simulator. I could easily shoot. I remember doing I worked in IT for 18 years, and it was a well paid but very stressful job. And I remember taking some customers out from Orange back in the day and taking them to a really nice golf course at Mill Ride down in Berkshire. And I think I shot about 126 that day. And like nowadays, I can't imagine how someone could do that. But that was my standard of golf, and I basically hated being that bad at golf, and I hated the idea that I would get on that first tee and I could potentially miss the ball or just top it and it go about a metre. And I've always been good at sport. I've always thought I'm a good footballer, good at table tennis, decent at tennis. I've been a fast runner. I always thought I was good at sport, and I hated the fact I was rubbish at golf. So I thought, you know what? Must have seen it somewhere, an expensive boy's toy. I'd quit my IT career at the time, decided I was a bit stressed by it all, and I just wanted to kind of chill out. And I thought, what better way for me to get better at golf than actually do it in a locked room, in the dark, where no one can see me, no one can see how bad I am, and just kind of learn golf that way. And I will refer to this later. I'm not a golfer, I'm a sim golfer. So when people see the disparity of my scores, which we may get onto, I'm decent indoors. I'm lousy outdoors still, or not as good at outdoors. But that was why, and one of my best mates, I should also add, I could beat him at pretty much everything, like pool and table tennis, and I'd say I'm a better footballer. And the nastiness of me was that I wanted to take it away from him, that he was a way better golfer. I wanted to beat him at that as well. And but that's what my personal motivation, albeit for not always good reasons. But there was no way that I had any space at the house. And there was no possible way that I was going to get permission for spending what I thought was going to be about 10 to 15 grand on building one when I'm not even a golfer. I don't even go out playing golf. So why would I be allowed to build one? So I came up with a facade, which was that I was going to set up a business, a golf simulation business, and that I needed to rent a lockup about a mile away from the house, which cost quite a lot of money. And in there, I was going to build my luxury studio, and then maybe there'll be like people that would hire it out, and maybe I'd like promote it. I mean, I had no intention of doing that at all, and it was elaborate lie. It was just an excuse for me being able to spend the money. I got permission for it and got away with it for about 6 to 8 months before I was sat down and we were going through registering domains, registering business names, getting Companies House on the case. And my lovely wife was like really making sure that it turned into a business. I was there thinking, I don't want to do this. Anyway, that's how I got it. That's how I got started. And that's true.
Oh mate, you've told me that story before, and it tickles me. It's hilarious, that story. I love it.
And how nervous I am. I never imagined for 1 second I would be broadcasting a single round on YouTube, let alone
Really?
doing videos. And I should also add, I'm not a DIYer. I can't put a raw plug in the wall without messing it up. I start with the little red ones, and they end up as those massive grey ones. So when it came to building it, part of my motivation for the business and setting it up with me was that if I can do it, anybody can do it, and people shouldn't be afraid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You could have fooled me, mate, because with what you've built at your in your house and then from your videos, your older videos as well, it looked amazing. I remember when I was first watching those videos of you, I was like, wow, this is what I need. I need a setup that looks like this. It's perfect. So I thought you got to be doing something right there, mate. So even though you do yourself a bit of disservice, I think you've done very well there, pal. Now
The last one was better than this one. The last one I had a
Was it?
dedicated kind of luxury studio built, and it was no compromise, albeit I always compromise on money. I'm a Scotsman living in Yorkshire, so I'm not going to be spending more than I need to. But the new one is very compromised, and again, we'll get onto it.
Yeah, sweet.
I'm sure.
So, I'd love to talk to you about the Sim Golf Tour and a little bit about the history of that. Not going into too much detail, but and I also want to question you about your name on the Simulator Golf Tour as well. But before we get into that, explain to everybody which launch monitor you use. I think you mentioned the GC2, and where did you get that from, and was that the first one that you started out with?
So going way back when you're asking about kind of the simulator, there was really one site, I would say, where everything was, and it's golfsimulatorforum.com. That was where people were posting sim ideas, sim builds, all those kind of things. And I'd imagine my entire motivation and resource pool for being able to build something was through them. And I should also add, it's interesting that you've got the tie-in with Golf Swing Systems. I shouldn't mention competitive companies here, but I think it's Steve who I did have a conversation with way back, and it was about whether I buy a kind of enclosure kit. And I just decided that, I'm going to learn so much more doing it myself. Don't you do the little 5% thing at the end with me being interviewed? That would be that would be a conflict of interest.
I won't, mate.
No, you can. You may well do. I'm joking. But that knowledge made me think about, okay, I can potentially do it. And I can't remember the names of the guys. I think there's a Brettster. Brettster's some guy I chat to on Skype a while back, about a year ago, and I recall him as being one of the usernames. There was ZMax, who is heavily involved with previous tours. So that was kind of the guys that got me started. But you asked about the launch monitor. I was very, very close. I looked at two. I looked at the Proti system, which obviously with the tie into Golf Simulator Forum featured heavily. And that was the sensors on the wall, sensor under the floor on the mat. And I think another camera above as well. And I was close to buying that. And I also met up with Justin from Foresight Sports, Justin Sandler, and was looking at buying a GC2, which was going to be a whole lot more money, but seemed like a really nice, neat, portable unit. Now it's just the GC2 on its own. And I was at the point where I was about to place an order when, I'm not kidding, I even had the email written placing the order for a new one, which was a lot of money. And then I just looked on eBay and a GC2 came up and it was £3,500. I bought it. It's from a guy called Berner Bayout, was his username. I'll give him a shout out because I've actually played golf with him on a couple of UK meetups. And he disappeared having sold his GC2 and then bought another and kind of came back, and he designs a fair few courses. So turned out it's a small world in the end. But bought a GC2, and over the 8 years, I've probably bought 7 GC2s, every time upgrading to a newer serial number and then selling mine on to people that I know needed one.
All right. So does it make a big difference, like the newer the model of the GC2 is?
No, it makes no difference on distance, reliability. I've played with guys that have got like 1,000 or 2,000 serial numbers, which are like way back in the day. I think my current one's an 11,000. It just gave me a little bit of assurance that the components inside are that bit newer.
Yeah, fair enough.
And as when I got them, I mean, the first one I bought was £3,500. The last one I bought was £3,000, albeit it was the newest one. And it's a common theme when I talk to people, and I maybe jumping the gun on the script, but when you're talking about different technology, the used GC2 market is fantastic. There's such a reliable bit of kit. I should add, when I bought one of the ones I bought in the middle, I actually went over to Neffin Golf Club and met John Froome, who's who was the leading pro there. I guess he still is the senior pro. And I bought a GC2 and HMT from him as a package. So that's when I got HMT. Do I use it for practice? Never. But we'll get on again. I saw your questions last week. It's a great video. So I'm probably like aware of some of the things you'll be asking about. I don't want to jump it too early.
No, mate, I told you I'm happy to go with the flow. I love it. I love how you can just digress into different areas because it makes me think of all sorts of new questions as well. So, the
HMT, I'll just add then, the GC, for people that know it, the GC2 obviously looks at ball data. The HMT is the add-on, the tool stick that's at the side of the GC2, and that looks at the club data if you dot your clubs up. And it gives you a lot of club data as long as you put the dots in the right place. And, it's fascinating what that gives you if you want to work on your game and if you want that club data. As it is, it's just been an expensive toy for me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you to explain what the difference is between the GC2 and having the HMT as well. But you've done that now, so I appreciate that, mate.
Well, I'll also just add GC2 is all that's needed for the simulator software because it only cares about ball data. It doesn't give a damn about any of the club data. So if people are thinking about, do I need both? Will I get more accurate readings and things like that? No, not at all. HMT is purely if you want club data for working on your game. It has no role to play in terms of the online tour, the competitions, the simulator stuff, just to be clear.
So I'm
stop talking
thinking
now.
about it. No, I like it. I'm thinking about upgrading. Now I obviously have a SkyTrak on my channel, and I love it. It's been amazing. But I have thought about it because you always think, oh, what's the next best thing to get? What's the next upgrade? And now that you've said that you've got a GC2 for like £3,000, that's got me thinking even more like, why is it so much more reliable? What would you say the difference is between the SkyTrak and the GC2?
The SkyTrak is a little bit sensitive, would be the phrase I've got, and a GC2, 99.9%. I could play a full round, and I don't question anything. It's red. I believe what it says if it was push or pull. The only thing maybe you could argue is some of the slower putts where maybe a deviation on the mat might bobble it and you get a reading that possibly you don't think you did hit it 2 degrees left. That's occasional, but you'll hit all your shots, whether it's a 2-yard flop shots, whether it's going to be a massive drive, you're going to trust it and it's going to be reliable, and it will very rarely miss a shot, whether that is a worm burn or a 0 degree launch angle 3-wood, or whether it's going to be a shank, it will read that shot. SkyTrak, and I was a reseller for SkyTrak, a showcase dealer for many years, and for the money, at the time it was the only thing you could get that would be a step up from the OptiShot, which is effectively a toy at the end of the day. It's an entertainment device, to something that gives you real data. The issue would be you'd be scratching your head probably, I'd say, every 10 shots. That did I hit it that far left or right, or if you hit a putt, it could be a crucial putt, you think you've hit it well, it doesn't read it, you have to repeat the putt and you obviously duff it the second time round, or a little chip, or you try a flop shot. And again, some people seem to have got SkyTrak absolutely nailed down in their setup, and you may be one of those. Many other people struggle, and if you had a mirror in the background, if you're wearing white shoes, if you've got a white-headed driver, do you put the dot when you're driving? You put it slightly behind the laser. When you're hitting wedges, slightly in front. It's all of those little things that add up, which can add up to frustration, and especially if you end up taking the tour and online competitions too seriously, like I do, then you'll start getting annoyed by those little things that will grate on you. And we used to call it, you get skyjacked. I think it was skytracked, whatever it was. I can't remember the phrase. I never had one. But it was like, you always felt sorry for the SkyTrak boys that the GC2 was generally getting everything right.
Yeah, so there are times when I'm using my SkyTrak and I feel like I'm a decent enough golfer to know when I swing what kind of shot that's going to be off the bat. And there are a couple of times every now and again where I think, nah, that didn't go that far right. I'm not having that. It felt decent off the club face. Now, that might be just me being an amateur golfer and not amazingly good, but like I say, I do feel like I can kind of tell sometimes, and it can get a bit frustrating. And there are those times where you've hit a great shot, you can feel you've hit a great shot or a nice putt, and it just doesn't pick up. It's a no read, and then you're pissed off. So your next shot, you try a little something harder or different, and then you just completely mess up your shot, and it just pisses you off even more.
Yeah. What's your handicap? Are you about 13 or is it 12?
Yeah, 12 at the moment. Well, actually, about 11.3, because after I shot that round that I've just put online, I had a very good score in a competition, so it came down to about 11.3. So officially at my golf club, 11. But yeah, 11, 12-ish is what I'm knocking about around.
Yeah, well, I played off 13 last week when we had the UK Sim get together. So there's 4 of us on the online tour that meet up pretty much every year, and sometimes more. And my last round was 81, and I completely messed it up on 18. A birdie would have broken 80 for the first time, and I ended up hitting my first bad iron of the round. But only 2 rounds before that, I shot 107. So I've still got the blow up the blow up shots in my repertoire. Sadly,
Yeah. Oh,
sadly,
that's good, mate.
but yeah. And the other thing is, technically the GC2, I should also have added, it takes more shots. It takes more cameras, photos of the ball, and then compares them for spin numbers, as opposed to SkyTrak that I think, I'm not certain, I think it takes just 2. So there's technical reasons why you get a more reliable answer.
So, I believe like Foresight have the discontinued GC2s now. Can you only buy them in the second-hand market?
I don't know if they still do any refurbished ones. I mean, they've launched the GC3 now. They've obviously got the quad. They've got, I assume they've still got the Hawk. I mean, I've not looked at any of the new models. Again, I can't think what I would need more than the GC2 for my usage, and bang for buck, to use a horrible phrase, arguably. It's great. So I don't know. You can inquire at Foresight about them, but scour the forums. I mean, the main Discord forums for whatever software you're using. It's not just the GS Pro one. Check an eye on those. Look on eBay, but beware of scams. There are so many scams where people want you to pay maybe bank transfer, and then they'll give you a discount to avoid fees. Those kind of things. GC2s are rife for them. So make sure you can get some credibility as to who the person is selling it. Check out the serial number if possible. And just be careful and make sure you're protected however you're going to pay.
Yeah, that's really good to know. That's not just advice for me, that's advice to anyone that's watching, obviously. What I've noticed on some of the Facebook groups and stuff, there's a couple of dodgy people knocking about, isn't there? So definitely be careful, ask for the serial numbers. I think people on Facebook ask for like photographs with the person's name next to it who's posting the advert and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good to know. I might
look out for pros.
That, mate.
Yeah, look out for pros that are upgrading. I mean, they'll always be approaching, looking for the next best thing, whether it's going to be a GC3, whether it's going to be going up to a quad. And a lot of the time, their device won't be sold at full market value. You can pick yourself up some bargains. But I do get asked all the time by my customers, "Oh, great, Phil, can you find one for me?" And I have to just say no, because I don't know when they're going to appear. I can't provide any guarantee for that.
Amazing. I'm going to...
and I'll also jump in ahead of another question. Check out the Unicore. I think if you've got the ceiling height, the Unicore systems are actually very good from what I've heard. I mean, I would if I had more headroom, I would seriously consider the Unicore systems for my sim use.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research into those myself, and it sounds like they're a very good piece of kit. So yeah, if I had the ceiling height as well and the space, I'd probably look into something like that. But yeah, I'm definitely going to have a look out on the Discord channel and eBay. I'm going to have a look out for a used GC2, I think, after everything you've just taught us there, Phil. Thank you very much. Now then, let's get into your setup. So you say you've got a little barn outside in your new house. Can you just tell everybody what sort of dimensions your room is, approximately?
So the little barn, I haven't measured it. The little barn must be 15 metres by 15 metres and 2 floors. So it's a huge barn, or maybe bigger. It's a really big barn. It's just on both floors. There's no ceiling height above about 2.3, I'd say. 2.3. So that presented an issue when I was looking at where to locate the sim, because there wasn't a single bit in that huge barn where I could do it, except it's got a little lean-to on the back, and it means the lean-to ends up having that higher swing space. So again, I'll show dimensions, I'll take photos, or you'll embed them. You're way ahead of the game on that. But the lean-to, where you walk into the simulator space, anyone that watches my YouTube channel, you'll see there's a camera behind me. That's actually slightly outside of that sim space. It's on the floor about a metre back. That's looking into the area I'm hitting into. And in that space, it's 4.7 metres wide. So the last one I had was 5 metres, which was great. The sim space itself, so basically from the back wall that I'm hitting through behind the impact screen to the edge of the mat, the front of the golf mats that I'm standing on, is 4.7 metres, which is perfectly doable for usage. However, I like having a bit more ball flight, being a bit further away from the screen. And that presents a challenge in the current setup, because the actual screen height at the point where the impact screen is mounted, because it's a sloping space, is only 2.3 metres high. So that is the big compromise I had in the setup, is that the only way I could set it up and have space to swing would be hitting into a screen that is only 2.3 metres high, which means it's limited to a width of 4 metres for the image. And that's why anyone watching my channel will see I've got a fair bit of white space down the sides. And that's mainly due to the fact that I also reused all the equipment that I brought over from the previous setup, which was a big luxury studio that was 5 metres by 3.1 metres by 8 metres deep, and I could do anything I wanted in there.
Amazing. So you did your whole setup as a DIY jobby, didn't you?
Yes, I mean occasionally Shanky Golf, Shane Warren, the best PGA teaching pro out there. He can do virtual lessons for anyone out there. He does loads of them already. But if you're looking for someone who's the best, he's the guy. He does come up, and normally the first thing he does is brings a Hoover. He's absolutely disgusted at the state of my golf mats and the kind of sim, and we waste the first 2 hours of him arriving basically hoovering the sim setup. So I should add that was of huge help. And he helped me staple gun some cardboard to the ceiling to block out some skylights. Basically, the new build more than ever has been about, because it's compromised, I don't want to spend a penny more than I need to. So my setup is done on a budget. Now, the key components aren't things like the launch monitor, the PC, the projector, and the mats, and the mat and impact screen. They're the things that I care about, meaning I'm not going to compromise the actual golf experience.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less about acoustic foam tiles looking nice on the wall. I couldn't care less about a few balls disappearing into a gap and me having to scoop them out. It's like Christmas every few weeks when I go behind this impact screen and drag them out. And that's where I do feel a bit embarrassed on this, because I saw the great setup from last week. I watched the video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, whenever it went live. And I'm not looking to build a luxury studio for myself. I'm just looking at making sure those key components give me a golf experience that isn't compromised in any way, and that I can score whatever I need to score online. And for my customers, I would spend a little bit more time passing on the kind of lessons I've learned, because I've rebuilt my sim. I've rebuilt it in 4 locations. And I've probably rebuilt it at least 2 or 3 times in each of those locations. And one was with a steel frame, one was with steel wire, one was going to be with carpet, one was with mats all across the floor. One of them was having a full enclosure that I was potentially going to take on the road for like sim hire. I've gone through all these iterations, and I am where I am today. And it is on my YouTube channel. You can go back look at the various sim building ones.
I've seen it. And I've seen, I remember thinking when I started watching, I was like, God, he's rebuilding his sim room again. Like, he's never happy. But obviously there's reasons behind it. But that was good for me.
There normally is.
Yeah, each time you did it, it kind of gave me a new idea of what to set up in mine. So my room's obviously small, and I've got the screen going from wall to wall. And it was from you where I got the idea of using the wire rope. And that just makes it so much easier for me, because originally I had the metal frame enclosure, and I remember getting into my new garage. Yeah, I remember getting into my garage thinking, shit, if this ball comes back, I ain't getting out of the way here. It's gonna absolutely smash me. So once I seen your video, I was straight onto Amazon, wire rope, getting all the clips, all the gadgets that you mentioned in your setup, and since then it's just been so much better, so much easier for me. So yeah, that was definitely a nice tip that I got from you, pal.
That is good. I mean, anytime the first few iterations of trying to do the metal frame, which was going to be my aluminium frame, take it on the road to events and hire it out, and go to weddings where they want one, that kind of thing, which never took off. I never even looked into it that seriously. It was just such a damn challenge trying to protect that top bar without having Velcro sewn into the impact screen and having that kind of custom enclosure, which is why you pay more when you want that enclosure as opposed to doing a DIY. And those first few videos on YouTube, I mean, I haven't gone back and watched them. Maybe I've taken them down since. When I would flush a 50-degree wedge and it would come back off that bar, I mean, it's like proper flinch and duck and cover. I was desperately trying to avoid it. You hear it rattling around in the back, maybe hitting the projector at the back of the room. And it was dangerous, really dangerous. And I ended up, probably the worst fix of all I ever did was I just had some of the, I had loads of bubble wrap that was just hanging around in the house at the time because we'd moved. And I ended up just wrapping it around and around and around and around and around that top bar. And then I even put some carrier bags into it. So anytime it went up there, it just hit this massive carrier bags and dropped down. And it did the job for about 3 months until I went elsewhere. So I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying that's the recommended solution, but it's whatever works.
It's definitely a problem. It's definitely a health and safety risk, that top bar in it. I remember saying on one of my old videos when I initially had my set up outdoors with the metal frame, and I'd hit a wedge or something and it came off the top bar, and my hitting mat was on some on the flags outside, on the concrete flags, and it hit the top bar. It missed me, but it bounced off the concrete flags, bounced over my house, and landed in between my car and my missus' car on like the stone driveway. If it had just landed a yard either side, we've had a smashed windscreen, and it would have been a disaster.
Oh no.
It's very, very dangerous, I'd say, having that top bar.
It is, and it's also where people have the room for it, and you don't need something freestanding. The wall-to-wall and even floor-to-ceiling is such an easier build for a DIY with things like slotted angle iron up the side. You can either build a wooden frame or slotted angle iron along the top, and then just a bit of padding or whatever it is, or staple some carpet to your ceilings or your walls. That's what I've done.
Yeah.
Staple gun. Honestly, most of my build now is just a staple gun and carpet. That's all I do.
That's a proper
Yeah,
DIY
all of the ceiling protection, the side stuff is literally material that's just staple guns. Because I've got a wooden barn, it's wooden joists everywhere.
Yeah.
May as well use them, and I just charge around. Every time I'm in a video and you see a bit of my ceiling protection drop down, which occasionally does, and covers the screen, just get the step ladder, like, I don't know, a week later when it bothers me, go up there, done.
Maybe I need to invest in a staple gun, mate. It might work for me, that.
It's great, good bit of equipment, yeah.
Yeah. Right, mate. So, you've told us the dimensions of your room. You've given us a great history of your room there. I'm wondering, you're an experienced sim golfer. So what hitting mat do you use? What do you hit off?
Yeah, so the various components, are you going to go down each of the bits, or do you want me to kind of lay out what I do, the different components and costs? I can also give costs if it's helpful.
Yeah,
okay.
you lay it out, Phil.
I mean, it's on the previous videos, as I say, where I built it. But basically, the mats that I use and I sell at Hybrid Me is called a T40 mat. It's one of the T-turfs, which are the kind of thick pile mats with a bit of foam backing. I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment, that I want something honest. I don't want anything being masked. And if I go down a kind of cheaper driving range where you've got that kind of thin, skiddy mat, you can lazily skid your club through, get a good impact and get good launch, even when in reality I'm getting a bit of bounce off the bottom of the mat. And I just don't want that when I'm doing sim golf, because I don't play that much outdoor golf. Maybe last couple of years it's been more like almost maybe 10 rounds a year. But the years before that, it was probably only like 4 or 5. I've probably played 60 rounds of golf, 70 in my life, or maybe 80 now. So I like the T-turf type mat because I can hit down through, and there's enough fibres that I'm not going to bottom out. But also, if I hit the ball fat, I'm going to get punished accordingly. I'm going to lose a lot of distance. Now, T-turf is a bit more spongy, so I actually prefer to stand on a shorter pile, slightly firmer mat. So I also have a stance mat next to it. So T40 is what I hit off. The stance mat's what I'm hitting on. And at some point you probably ask about it, but I've got rage issues when it comes to sim golf. I must have broken over 20 golf clubs in the last couple of years. I throw clubs like crazy, and there's certain throws you can do where you're not going to break it. It's the sidearm rotation so it hits the screen flat. And when I send you photos, you'll see all the grip marks on the left hand side of the screen. It's all grip marks from clubs being thrown. The one where I want to break it is either the overarm down, or it's the throw down into the corner of the barn where I want that club to jam in the corner and snap, basically. But I would go around whacking my club on the ground, and it would, because it was a barn and I just had like carpet in my first build, I was putting holes in the carpet, and I did that like the first week I used the sim in the new house, which was awful, which is why people may realise my first video I had this lovely black carpet. So I ended up buying T40. Obviously I can get it through my sources cheaper than having to retail it, but I ended up buying the T40 mats, and I've basically got my whole floor now covered in T40. Because it's a thicker pile mat, it means it cushions the club and I don't tend to break them as much. But it's a little bit excessive, I should add. It means I've put 1,500 quid's worth of mats on my floor instead of £100 worth of carpet.
Mate,
it's desperation.
It saves you money on golf clubs, doesn't it?
And it is just sheer desperation. I don't know why. I think it's unrealistic expectations. You know, I'm a 13 handicap golfer on a good day, and I do mean on a good day. I've said what I can score on a bad day. When I go in the sim, I want to be scoring like well under par. You know, I want to be 4 or 5 under, and I've shot a 60 and a 61 on the sim. Yeah, I can't break 80 outdoors. I mean, that's madness. But
mate, I've played against you on the sim, and you absolutely tore me a new one. So I've seen how good you are.
I had a good day that day.
Yeah,
I had a very good day that day.
You had extra motivation because it was Liverpool versus Man United. I know.
I thought you weren't going to bring it up. You said you weren't going to bring up football.
Later on.
We've got to behave, otherwise I'll bring up football.
Anyway, what do you project in? Like, what is your projector? Is it 1080p? Is it 4K? What projector have you got?
So my first sim back in the day, so again, my earliest YouTube videos, you can go back on the channel, they were in the lockup, you know, the facade, the fake business location. And that was I think it was about £600 to £700 projector. It would have been about between 2,800 and 3,000 lumens, and it was mounted 8 meters back in the lockup I had. So not commercial grade brightness. It was 1080p, but it was totally fine for me, and I loved it. It was like having the coolest toy ever to be able to like practice golf, play golf, go down there and have a few beers and watch the rugby and football and that kind of thing. Then when I moved to my latest projector, which I tried to look it up, I couldn't find the invoice from the order. It's not a tax issue. I'm not trying to avoid something, but it was. I got it in my mind. It was about £2,500, and it's 4K. It's bright, so it's 4,500 lumens, I believe. And there's just nothing. There literally, to the best of my knowledge, isn't a bright short throw 4K projector other than the BenQ that gets touted about all over the place, which is a lovely laser monitor. But in the UK market, I think it costs about $6,000 to $7,000, whereas in the US it's about $5,000. So since I got it, it's been discontinued. It's the Optoma 4K 550 ST. ST is critical. You will see Optoma 4K 550s out there on eBay. But if it doesn't have ST, then it's not the short throw model, and you'll probably end up too far away from your screen. Now, two of the good friends that I play golf with, Tommy and John Mayer, they both bought one, I think about a year ago, and spent about £1,000. They got maybe 1,100 and got a really good deal on a used one. I would suggest for anyone going 4K that wants a kind of bright projector, you're looking out for them on eBay, or you're spending a lot of money, or you're going for the slightly cheaper 4K ones that are just a little bit less bright, maybe 3,000 lumens.
Right. Okay.
There's a long answer to a simple question.
No, it's good because I get asked questions about projectors all the time. Which one should you go for? What would you recommend? And I ain't got a clue about projectors. I really don't know. Mine was dead lucky. It's a Hitachi one. I picked it up off eBay, and I must have got an extremely good deal on it. But I've just stuck with this, and then it does the job in my sim room. If I was to ever upgrade my sim room, get a bigger room, and it has natural lighting or something, then I might look to upgrade. But for the time being, I'm quite happy with what I've got.
Well, I may as well plug my YouTube channel further. There is a choosing a projector for golf simulation video on there. It's a little bit nerdy, but it does talk about the key things, the aspect ratio for whatever setup you've got, what I consider the minimum brightness, which is 3,000, but more ideally around 5,000 lumens to get that kind of commercial pop. And people can get into lumens it doesn't necessarily show brightness, it's the nits and it's how far away it is, and you can look at projector, but basically it goes through what is the process I would do for a customer in trying to find a projector that they could buy and not spend more than they need to. And it also links to a couple of the projector sites where it shows you the calculator that can be used. So if you're willing to be a little bit nerdy, it's probably a decent video for anyone looking at a projector, about 10-15 minutes long, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video, and I'll pop it in a card up there as well, because that sounds amazing. I think I need to go and watch that one, mate.
It's not amazing, but it's okay.
Well, it's better than what I know, pal. So your business, right? This is kind of going off script now, so feel free to not answer any of this if you don't want. Your business, you obviously deal in golf simulator stuff. Did that start from buying your GC2 and setting up your simulator and then realising to your missus you've kind of got to do something around this, or was it a completely separate thing?
That was twofold. I knew that I needed to, I'd spent enough money that I needed to at least launch a business of some kind in that golf simulation area. I wasn't entirely sure maybe reselling components. I come from an IT world, and I still would. I'd still rather sell higher end technology components. So anyone out there watching this video that has higher end launch monitors and like techie components, that's what I would like to be selling. But I'm happy selling mats and screens and rolling up material and putting it in boxes and doing things like that. So the motivation for me was I launched the business, and the very first customer was it was somebody building a simulator at home for their nephew, and their nephew was on a junior tour trying to make it as pro, and they still are, and I still get a phone call every few months, and they basically said, we've got a dedicated room, we want to build this, and I'm not going to say who it was, but this company had come in and said it was going to be £43,000 for them to get their simulator in this room. And I then obviously said, okay, but how much of that is actually building the room? And he said, nothing. It's a fully decorated, ready to go room. And I was like, wow. And I said, like, you know, I can come and spend a couple of days with you free of charge if you want. I'll just help you build it. And it won't be the high end finish you've got, but it'll be fully functional, and you can bang in shots in. It'll be safe. And, you know, you don't need to pay for my time. If you're willing to order the projector through me and the PC and the mats, he would do. So we did, and I learned a lot on that job because it was my first project. I didn't charge anything for it. Like I don't charge consultancy in general. I think there's only 2 projects I ever have, and it just annoyed me that was the case, because even with the technology components, because it did include the launch monitor, I think in the end it cost, including 13 grand's worth of launch monitor, I'm sure it was only about an extra 4 grand on top of that to finish it.
Wow. And
yeah, that was actually my motivation, just thinking people are being told you have to spend something, and you don't need to spend that. You can, and you may get the most luxury finish that you can show off to people with, but you don't need to. And that was my sole motivator for thinking, okay, why don't I get the key components people need, the projector, the PC, help them with that, help them with a bit of design ideas, albeit I can only speak from my experience. You know, I'm not going to, if they're saying I want a retractable screen, like I've asked many times, I say that's not really what I do. You know, go and talk to other guys. And now the business has evolved to the point where I've always felt uncomfortable asking for money off people for things that they could then just type it into Google and maybe get it cheaper. I don't want to add margins on. If I can reduce the price for things, that's great. So I tend not to sell projectors. I tend to just help them choose one, and then say go and buy it from the best site you can. PCs, it becomes a bit of a online competitive game of, you know, who got the cheapest graphics cards and the rest. And as long as you get from a reputable supplier, it doesn't really matter probably if it's a Dell or a Chill Blast or who it's going to be. So again, I've backed away from that and focused on the products where I think, you know what, I know they're the best out there. And that's the impact screen that, obviously you've got one of them. I use the same impact screen. And for me, it's the best image, the best thickness, the best sound, the easiest to work with. Doesn't require a backstop. And, you know, I've got a 4K projector and I think it's fantastic. So I'm very happy to recommend and provide that to my UK customers. And not just UK, I've got customers in Australia, the US even, which seems a bit crazy when there's suppliers over there. And the mats, another thing, you know, I've had, I started with a Country Club Elite mat that I imported from the US. That is a big, heavy mat, and it costs a lot of money to buy it and to get it imported. And it did make me a better player, but it made me a picker because of how tough and how brutal it is, because it's so dense.
Yeah.
I then went to something like a True Strike, and I spent a lot of money on the True Strike, and I just didn't get on with it. I didn't like the hard rubber setup and the base and the panels. And then ended up going to T35, which is a T-Turf, and then the latest iteration, which is T40, which is another variant of the T-Turf, but that much more durable. And when I've got a component that I really, really like, I'm happy to recommend it, because I don't like putting my name or my reputation to anything that isn't going to stand up. So, you know, I think they always talk about, I want to say eating the dog's dinner, what is it? But eating the dog food? No, what is it? I can't even think say, but basically it's an IT thing. I use the components that I sell. You know, if I thought there was something better, I'd be using it myself.
Yeah, and honestly, it's really admirable that, because obviously in this day and age with the internet, you can get people recommending stuff just because it might earn them a quick dollar or whatever, a quick pound. And yeah, that just listening to that was like, it's so genuine that you can see, like, you're not going to rip anybody off. I mean, you sent me a bloody impact screen for nothing, like out of the goodness of your heart, which was, I'm so grateful for. It was amazing.
And you had Man United shirt on when I saw your video.
I know. They're extremely generous there. But yeah, like when you was talking about all that, about like the price and the cost of things, I guess like I'm quite similar in a way. Or I like to see myself as quite similar to that because I built a golf simulator on the cheapest budget that I possibly could. Because yeah, it's an expensive business. It's an expensive game to get into. It's an expensive hobby, is what I'm trying to say. And I said it in my previous video. We're obviously quite in a privileged position to own a toy like this. But what I would like to do on my YouTube channel is kind of make people aware that you don't have to go and spend 15, 20, 40 grand to get a golf simulator. There's stuff out there that is a little bit more affordable to everybody. So yeah, when people ask me to recommend stuff, I only ever try and recommend stuff that I own or I have tried and used since I've been doing this YouTube channel, because I like to do stuff DIY. I want to keep the cost down, and like I say, it just gives you a little bit more satisfaction than just going and handing over a big lump sum of money to get something that might look amazing, but at the same time you could probably save yourself a few quid as well.
It does. I mean, I did the costings for my one, and I mentioned GC2 and HMT about 7.5 grand. I could have saved half that if I'd just gone with GC2. Or nowadays, you can pick them up for 3 grand, like you mentioned. I spent a fair bit on the PC. I'd say don't compromise on the PC. Go desktop rather than laptop if possible. I spent about 2,200 on mine with an RTX 3080 card, mainly because I was going to be running 4K. And I do run 3 webcams, 4K. OBS records it in 4K, so I am getting a little bit of stutter, and I'll probably need to tweak my recording settings to just make sure everything runs smoothly. There's a video that another YouTuber put out today, but I'd done it about 2 months ago on touchscreen monitors that I used to sell a touchscreen monitor because I think it's a great interface. Now, I would recommend to anybody, just get yourself a really good TV of any size. Mine's 50-inch, and just buy an infrared frame that goes around it and turns it into a touchscreen. And that will cost you still another 200 quid on top, but you end up with a 4K touchscreen monitor that's fabulous image, and it works brilliantly. So whenever I find something like that, even though I'm not going to resell these frames because at the end of the day they're on Amazon and they're probably at the lowest price you can get them anyhow, I'll do a video just showing people like here's a good idea if it can help you. And and similarly spend a lot on acoustic foam towels if you want that finish. If not, buy yourself some black artificial grass carpet and staple gun it to your walls. It does the job. It's only the odd shank that's going to hit it, or a tossed club. In my case, a thrown club.
I do, yeah, I like that because you're obviously solely bothered about the immersiveness of the play. You just want everything. When you're playing, you want the most accurate shots, you want everything to look great on the screen, but you're not that arsed about the aesthetics of how your golf room looks. So that's quite interesting, that, because obviously building a golf simulator can be a never-ending project. You can always like add tweaks to it to make your room look a little bit better and what have you. But yeah, your outlook on it is you just want the best of the stuff that matters to make sure that you get that best experience of actually playing golf.
Yeah, I mean, going back to why I built the golf sim, it was to be a better golfer, but I would have quit within a few weeks. I'd have realised, you know what, golf's tough. It's a tough sport, I may as well just leave it. Except I was able to actually get involved in an online tour, which we haven't particularly discussed, but although I'm aware this has gone on a fair bit. The fact there was this online tour with world ranking points, with prize money, with tournaments that I could win, and I'd end up with a virtual tournament. The fact I could play against all these golfers and find out where I stand in that order. I'm a bit of a competitive junkie, whether it's going to be a social... I don't do social golf or social rounds. I like to be playing for a reason, whatever it's going to be. If I turn up for like a game of squash, I'll hit like 2 shots in warm-up and say, you ready to start? And most people want to do like 10 minutes of knocking it off the wall. I can't be bothered with that. And sim golf is the same. And this is why sim golf, I'm accused of playing quite quickly. And I have done some speed golf rounds on there. I love to play it quickly. If I get slowed down, I start thinking about it, and I've got a fragile mind when it comes to golf, and I don't need time to think about my shot. But the bad news is, when I now go outdoors, I want to get around in like 2 hours, and it kills me to be stuck behind slow golfers. And that's the downside of me playing sim golf. I don't have much patience for slow golf.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's a beautiful little segue into the question that I was going to ask you next. So, your sim software of choice, can you tell everybody what that is?
Undoubtedly GS Pro. I recommend it for the official supported launch monitors and those that have got community built interfaces. Simply because the value it gets, which is extraordinary, $250 a year for the subscription model. People talk about this lifetime purchase. I'd ignore that. If you've spent what you've spent on a simulator and you want to gain an experience and get the best thing going forward, $250 a year really isn't much if you practice a lot. I appreciate some people it could be, but GS Pro, fantastic software, originally developed by a good friend of mine who actually I've captained in the Ryder Cup, and he's flown over to the UK and we've played golf with before, Davor. So, the fact that that came about as a result of Jack Nicklaus Perfect Golf, which was our previous favourite, being turned off when it was bought out by Perfect Parallel and Trackman. It's extraordinary what has gone into that GS Pro development in a short time frame, and there's version 2 coming out with the new interface. The amount of courses in the community, 287 I think it was last time I looked, new courses released every day. The skills of the designers out there that are putting time and effort into releasing those courses, and the fact they're all included. You're not being sold packages of courses or being told, great, this week we're discounting this course and you can buy it for £250. That's crazy when all of that's in GS Pro. So yeah, I just heartily recommend it for any GC2 users, the guys that have got other Foresight devices and have FSX, because sometimes that's a prerequisite for GS Pro. For the Flight Scope guys, for the Unicore guys, for SkyTrak guys, check out the Discord forum and get involved. It's fantastic software. I should add, before that, I did use TGC 2019 and TGC, and they did their job just fine as well. So I'd be doing a disservice to say they weren't good bits of software. But for me, there's only one out there, and it's GS Pro.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it last week on this same show. I guess we can call it a show now. Since I've had GS Pro, I've played on TGC once or twice, I think. And I must admit, when I first played GS Pro and I made like a first impressions video, I wasn't that keen on it, and it just didn't. I
remember your video.
Yeah, I was hearing all this stuff about GS Pro and how amazing it is, and I bit the bullet. I paid the $250, and I played it for the first time, and I was like, "Oh, is that it?" And I don't know why it was. I think it was because I got so used to playing on TGC 2019 for 12, 18 months, whatever it were, and then I was like, right, I'll give it another go. And I played it again, and I played it again, and then all of a sudden I just found myself loading up GS Pro every time I got into the sim room. And I think what massively did it for me was when they released Home of the Players on GS Pro Sawgrass. It was like, I played that course and I was like, wow, this is going to be amazing. This software is definitely going to be the future of our sim golf. And I just thought, yeah, this is what I'm going to be playing from now on.
Well, I think I heard last week you mentioned that you also played TGC on the PlayStation before, or console.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
One thing, undoubtedly, that I actually liked, some people hated it, was the commentary, the little Saki comments, and the kind of sound effects that go around it. And it was slick. It was slick. And I think that was something that was missed when the early version of GS Pro came over. And I'll be the first to say, even though I endorsed it and I showed it off because I like the guys as well as love the product. I can't wait till some of those more kind of less critical features do get added, because I think it's nice. I would like some sarcastic comments. There's more and more sound coming in and more things going on. So I do think that's good. But I should also add, it's not just the software. When I originally chose Jack Nicklaus Perfect Golf over TGC back in the day, a huge component of Sim Golf was the tour that it was linked to. It wasn't actually the software itself. It was the fact that Jack Nicklaus Perfect Golf was linked to the online golf tour at the time. An online golf tour, they didn't allow boost, they didn't allow rewinds, which sometimes was tough when you had a bad read, but it was really, every shot counts, every shot's recorded, but you had so many stats for greens hit and like distance from the pin and all these drive. And you could go down each tour, each individual, and look at all the who's putting best from 10 feet, who's putting best from 40 feet.
Wow.
And I loved the fact that you had all of that from day one in the tour. And it meant that I didn't go anywhere back to the other software just because that didn't have the same level of administration, the same level of professionalism within the tour that I wanted, because I was going in there taking it quite seriously. I therefore wanted everybody else to be playing to the same rules I was, and for that reason, that was a huge thing for me. And in fairness, GS Pro, now working with Simulator Golf Tour SGT, has been a great thing, because SGT is adding more and more features, more and more events. And again, it may not be on here, but the best thing I've ever done on the world of sim, has been captaining the world team against the US on probably 7 or 8 occasions in the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup, where at one point I think we had 32 Brits, Canadians, Aussies, Italian, a couple of South American, other Europeans, all playing all of the formats, the alt shot, the foursomes or four balls, and singles on the final day against about 50 Americans. And I lost a couple, I won plenty, and one of them went down to the last match, which was I think the 72nd match, the 18th hole and the final putt. And at 2 a.m, there were about 16 of us from the world in the Discord channel, all commenting, watching it, waiting to see this putt. Is it going in? Isn't it? They missed it. We won. And it was like we were celebrating. I was lying in bed with the laptop on there or the phone watching it. And it was nerve-wracking playing, not wanting to let these guys down. And the community we've got, I mean, I've still got the Discord channel. I'm the admin for it. So I still go in there and I can see all the comments. And that was just fabulous. I can't wait to participate, if not captain it again, when it's on GS Pro.
That sounds amazing. Like, I've got a few things that I want to say here. So, the very first time I played online against somebody, it was actually on TGC 2019. So, bit of a diversion away from it. But what I'm trying to get at is, I was a bit nervous about playing somebody online. I didn't know what it was going to be like. And honestly, after I'd finished the round, it felt just the same as playing 18 holes with somebody in real life that you didn't know on that first tee, because it's just, that's why I love golf. So you can go and play with some random person that you've never met before, and by the 18th hole you feel like you know them inside out. You're pretty good friends usually at the end of it, and that's exactly what I felt by playing somebody online, which I didn't expect at all. So just the online play of golf was like a massive like thing for me. I thought that is really, really good. And then when I got onto the Simulator Golf Tour with GS Pro, that was like you say, like that competitive thing that you need, or some of us need when we're playing sports, was there. And I was like, wow, why have I not joined this sooner? Because it is amazing. And like, obviously I want to, when I'm playing on the tour, I want to do well, but at the same time I always want to like beat myself as well, which is what, when I'm playing golf in the real world, I always want to better my handicap. I'm not always that arsed if I don't finish top 5, top 10, win the competition, whatever. As long as I'm making improvements all the time, that's where I'm at. And then the fact that you can track all of these stats, and you can track your finishing places, and see who's been winning most competitions and stuff, it's just amazing. And it gives you that element of sportsmanship, element of just competitive sports, but from the comfort of your own home.
It does. And I mean, you mentioned it playing like an online game, but when I've done the amount of online golf with various people, I've done the Ryder Cup, you get to know people so well because you're in that forum, you're all pulling for each other, you're all commenting and watching the same videos, and that's partly how I get to know Davor so well, the guy behind GS Pro.
Yeah.
And the same thing, some of the friends I've got in the UK, people like Shanky Golf, who I competed with way back in the first beta versions of Jack Nicklaus Perfect Golf. Loads of Aussie friends that I hope to go over there in 2025 and play golf with them, and during the Ryder Cup, during the Lions Tour. I went over to Vegas and played golf with I think 6 or 7 guys over there, which was all people I knew through Sim Golf, and got to play probably the best course I've ever played on, Reflection Bay over there in Vegas. I absolutely love that course.
Amazing.
And just the amount of good friends I've got through playing online. Yes, I could have competed in the tour against them, but only when you get involved and actually start playing with them, chatting with them. I encourage anybody to get involved, especially with scrambles. That's no pressure. Even if you're a bad golfer, just join a scramble and have some fun. It's brilliant.
Brilliant. I've not played a scramble before. Maybe it's we spoke about doing one, haven't we, mate? We'll maybe set up some sort of competition or something. But yeah, I definitely need to get involved in that. I've never played a scramble event online before. Just going back to the Ryder Cup. So is that based on your handicaps online, or is it just like a scratch competition?
The first few we did were handicap based, and the captains, which were Thin Man at the time, who's been banned from every forum and every bit of software ever. I'm hoping he'll make it back. I'm hoping he'll come back. I still chat to him, but Thin Man's the US captain. I've been the world captain for most, except for one. I think Jace stepped up and did it in Australia. And we originally did it with handicaps, and then we have a live matchup. So based on the number of players we've got, we would set up matches, and it would be these guys versus these guys. And you'd have a lot of new golfers, and their handicap wasn't very well established. And you had bandits. You had bandits, and it just became a bit of a people were losing due to the handicap rather than losing to the golf, which is a bit annoying. And although it's fair and it's how golf, it's one of the rare sports that lots do it, but I didn't like it, so I think I was one of the first to propose the next one we would do it gross. And the challenge of that is there were less world golfers than the US, and most of them at the top, with the exception of someone like Shanky at the time, were US golfers. So they had a lot of very good golfers, and we had a lot of kind of the second tier down, but not right at the top of the leaderboards. But the way we would do it, again, with all the matchups, would be I would name a person, Thin Man would name one, he'd then name his partner, I'd name it. And we would work damn hard based on our list of gross handicaps to make sure that the matches were fair and would be competitive. And I would say it's worked really well. The amount of effort that went into the prep to ensure that we could ensure that most of the time you had the right guys playing the right guys. The matches were fantastic, and I'd say the competitions have been fantastic. There was only one that we had a bit of an issue with, that we had to kind of cancel the President's Cup, and we ended up running it, and basically one guy in the US just won every match, swing left I think it was, and we got battered because he played about 8 matches. But every other time it's been brilliant, and I'm certain it will be done again on SGT. The one thing we're waiting for is a little bit of the website to be ready, because when you have time zones where guys are playing Australians playing with the Brit against 2 Americans on the West Coast, it's hard to arrange that game live, so you need to play it separately. And whoever plays second would see what their score was. So what happened in the old days of the leaderboard is it would only reveal the score for the hole when both teams have finished it. So therefore, even if you're playing second, you'll only know how you've done on the first hole when you finish the first hole, and then you play the rest blind. And that is already being developed, if not already ready. So there will be another Ryder Cup coming up soon.
Sounds amazing.
It'll be brilliant.
How many days does that
and it's
go
also we used to run it over about a month, and we'd have basically almost a week for each session. Maybe it's like 20 days, and we just have 4 or 5 days. So you've got a bit of time to get your match in. Yeah. And a lot of the time, the matchups would also be based on availability. We wouldn't just do it on handicap, because I knew that there's some guys. It's painful as a captain, because I'd have to ask everybody who puts forward, like, which days can you actually play? What hours can you play? And I'd have to try and see who are the guys that can play Tuesday afternoons, for example, and who are the guys that can only play at the weekend, and pair them up. So it's a lot of work for whoever takes on the captaincy, but it's hugely rewarding when the event goes and you just see how many people are involved and how cool it is.
Just by explaining all that,
and when you win it,
it seems like so much work goes into that just for something that I guess is a bit of fun for everybody. But like you say, the good thing about it is how rewarding it can be, and when it goes down to the final putt on the last hole, then obviously that must be a great feeling as well.
It was crazy. I think Nick Rhino won it, and I mentioned Bob Chung is a legend of sim golf on both TGC days and also on this, and everything he's gone through. I had to give him a shot. Somehow I had to give him a shot on when we played the singles, and I managed to get it down all square by 18. So that's probably my greatest achievement, all square with Brilliant. Bob Chung, having given him a shot.
Brilliant. Right, mate.
I'm the Open champion. I should also add, I'm the Open champion this year on ProNet. I couldn't be happier. That's my greatest achievement in sim golf, other than Bob Chung.
we've been filming for an hour and nearly 4 minutes, and you've only just
Wow.
brought up that you're the current champion golfer of the year.
Pro
I'm
net.
surprised
I
at
should say
that.
pro net.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll take that.
Still, very well done, mate. Very well done.
Thank you.
Now,
You did say this
since
would be a long one, didn't you? Yeah.
yeah, I knew it would be, but that's why we got you on, mate.
You'll have to edit this down. Yeah.
Any what I was going to ask you was V8 Burble. What is that?
Oh, yeah.
Where does it come from? And just explain a little bit about your Discord and your GS Pro name.
Sound of a car is the burble. It's the burble of a V8 car. I've always driven big V8 engined cars. The current one's a nice Maserati Grand Cabrio. It was a F-Type before that. Mercedes SL before that. I just love V8 cars and a
Fair
TBR
dues.
way back. So
I,
that's why. Nothing more
yeah.
clever than that.
I'm not very well up on cars whatsoever, so that's why I'm asking you about that name, because I didn't have a Scooby-Doo what that meant.
Yeah, nothing more clever than that, I'm afraid.
Okay. Right, we'll start wrapping it up a little bit. But what I want to know is, and I'm sure quite a lot of people who are watching this far into the video would like to know, is how much would you say, ballpark figures if you want, how much have you spent on your golf simulator room and setup altogether?
Current one.
Yes, current one.
Yeah, current one. I did work it out because I looked back and thought, again, $7,500 for GC2 and HMT. I don't need HMT. I'm going to halve that just for the sake of it being. I would say I've spent about 11.5K, but again, I could have taken 1,000 off that if I didn't put T40 across the whole of my floor, which I simply did because of rage. So if I'd put carpet, that would have halved that. Apart from the rest of it, it's PC at £2,000, it's a projector at £2,500, it's a TV at 300 quid. The IR frame's about £200. The mats, because I have a stance and the hitting one, would be about £500. I would say in and around that kind of 11K mark.
Yeah, and I think what's quite important, like we've said already, like for your setup, you've kind of looked at the kind of bare bones essentials of your sim setup, and you've not scrimped and scraped on those, like the projector, like the gaming PC, like the launch monitor as well. You've really gone not all out on those, but you've made sure that you've got a very, very good quality of each of those, and then the rest of it aesthetically you've kind of just DIY'd it.
Yeah, I couldn't care less about the rest of it. I mean, again, I only go back a month and I'd ripped down all my material that was at the back. You could see I was actually streaming with the webcam and it was showing just a bare wooden barn, and I was actually hacking my way out of the barn pretty much with clubs on a bad day. And it was embarrassing. I thought, you know what, at least let me staple gun a bit of that photography backdrop cloth to cover it up, and it looks better. It looks better for the streams.
Yeah.
So, especially when I'm selling sim equipment. I mean, I'm not one for putting too much effort into I haven't marketed anything ever. It's just been word of mouth and YouTube. So I am looking at kind of revamping things in the lead up to Christmas. New stock coming in. I need to get the new website set up. I need to be clear on exactly what I am doing. I'm hoping to resell some more technology components, but I don't know what they're going to be. If people have got ideas, let me know. Kind of get back a bit into my IT sales job a bit, and I may end up getting a job and running it alongside the business. So it's an evolving area for me, this. But the key thing is I've had a love-hate relationship with sim. I've definitely had periods of 6 months to 9 months where I've hated playing in the sim, and it's generally reflected how I've been feeling about challenges, pressure, stress. It's amazing if I go in and play sim golf when I'm in a good mood, how much better I score.
Wow, that's quite interesting. That I didn't realise that you'd gone through ups and downs with it. I thought you'd always been just there, sim golf, and you'd enjoyed it.
You've not watched enough of the channel then. You don't watch any of the actual videos I put out there where you just see me complete rage and anger and moaning and complaining. Boy, do I complain. But yeah, so other times you'll see me like stripping off because it's too hot, and I'll finish the round in just like little swimming shorts because it's been so hot in the barn, and you know, it depends what mood I'm in.
I'm glad I've not seen that video, mate.
Yeah, don't get many likes for those.
All right,
brilliant.
Right. Yeah. Let's start wrapping it up. I've got a few little fun questions for you. What would you say is your most favourite thing in your golf sim?
Oh, it's annoying because Jay put out a video today on Discord which basically mentioned it, and I said I did one 2 months ago. It's the IR frame. I just
Yeah.
love the beauty of sticking an IR frame around a 4K TV, 50-inch TV, and turning it into touchscreen. When I was close to spending about 2 to 3 grand on a touchscreen monitor that was big,
Wow.
and you don't need to. So yeah, I love that. But I should say the GC2. I just think it's a fantastic bit of equipment.
Sweet. Okay, what, if anything, would you improve in your sim setup?
I would spend half an hour sorting that top area to stop the balls going under. Although I say it doesn't bother me, it's like it's embarrassing. I haven't done it. I just can't be bothered. I just can't be bothered. And it's like getting a step ladder, which is not that far away, but it's I don't. Well, by the time I go out there, I just want to play golf for half an hour, and I think, well, will I waste like 20 minutes fixing this? So that's it, really. I'm happy with the mats, happy with the setup, happy with the projector.
Yeah.
PC's
Like you
good.
say, it's like
Yeah, that's
Christmas
it.
every time you go behind your screen.
I get about 30. I mean, that last video, you can see how many balls. I've got about 40, 50 balls in play at any time when I go in the sim. So, yeah.
Brilliant. What would be, if you could have an endless budget, what would be your dream launch monitor?
I can't spend more than I couldn't find any way. I couldn't find any justification for spending more than the GC2 for my needs. I don't need club
Yeah.
data. I haven't particularly looked into how much more accurate the quad may be than the GC2 in terms of the launch angles, the numbers, and the measured data. I'd be tempted to go quad just because it's the latest greatest, but again, I personally couldn't justify going above the GC2, or the Unicore ceiling mounted system, the IXO, simply because
Yeah.
I quite like the video, the club impact on the ball. That's quite a cool thing. Though I think, knowing how fragile I am mentally, when I hit a shank and I actually see the club impacting the ball off the hosel, I think I'll be broken for the next 3 months.
Oh mate, that's amazing.
I'm
I'd
too
love to see
fragile.
you.
I'm way too fragile.
I'd love to see your rage after a shot like that.
I don't need to see it. That's the thing. It's not too much of it.
Fantastic. Have you got a favourite simulator course that you play? So I'm assuming let's just talk GS Pro. Have you got a favourite GS Pro course, or do you not really have any?
It's the one that all the best golfers hate. They just find it dull beyond life, which is St Andrews. St Andrews is the old course because
Yeah.
there's hardly any trees, there's hardly any water, and if they could just take the bunkers away, I'd love it even more. But it's an ideal one for just going and playing. And yeah, you can get in the odd pot bunker, but you're not under massive pressure. You can be a bit loose. And for whatever reason, I always score so well. And that's why the Open was there, and I probably ended up winning this year. I always score well at St Andrews. But the other course would be Pebble Beach. I love Pebble Beach, and I love it on the simulator. I always did back in the Jack Nicklaus Perfect Golf days, taking on Thin Man and course records and stuff. So
Yeah.
they're the two for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love just playing
In
the
real
famous
life golf,
courses.
the only ones I can think of, Reflection Bay in Vegas, and I once went to the Cook Islands after a Lions tour in New Zealand, and we had a week in the Cook Islands, and we went to the second biggest one, which is Atutaki. And Atutaki had a golf course, and a guy turned up with 2 sets of clubs on a moped. He unlocked the gate to the golf course, just gave us the clubs, and we just had the place to ourselves. I mean, there's only about 80 people on the island, I think, or 100. And the holes were about that big, but the grass was like deep rough. The fairways were like deep rough. It was like crazy. And I think we remember teeing off at one point. We had to climb over the fence into the airport to tee off on one of the holes. It's just a fascinating round of golf, and I played really well.
Brilliant.
So that's up there with my favourite course. I wouldn't recommend
Yeah.
people go there for the golf, but it was interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting game of golf. It sounds it. Yeah. Right, mate. Do you have a favourite golfer?
I used to, and it was being a grumpy Scotsman myself. You can see where I'm going with this, but it would Monty. I always followed Monty. He's obviously a pompous arse so often, and he's an awkward numpty at times. But he was the guy I rooted for. He was the guy that I always tuned in and wanted to win, and loved watching him in the Ryder Cup spanking the Yanks. So it would have to be him. But if I'm honest, I'm not nowadays. the live thing's ruined it a bit for me because I just want to see all the best golfers in one event. I love watching the Ryder Cup. I love the Ryder Cup, but I'm more into football, rugby, American football. So nowadays, maybe it'd be Lee Westwood or Juan Miguel Jimenez as one of the old boys. I like someone who's a bit cheeky, a little bit of character.
Yeah, of course. I think I was the same with Monty when I was a kid and I started watching golf. I think maybe because he was one of the only Brits that I saw regularly on tour. He was definitely up there for me. I enjoyed watching him, and definitely in the Ryder Cups as well. He was always decent in there, weren't he? Okay, you just mentioned about football. People that have seen you on this channel before and have seen your channel will know that you're a dirty Liverpool fan. And I'm going to ask you, who is your favourite all-time footballer?
I thought you might, and growing up, I mean, Kenny Dalglish is what my dad always. That's why I'm a Scotsman, and the reason I'm a Liverpool fan is Kenny Dalglish was wearing a Liverpool shirt when I was growing up, and that was the reason I got into Liverpool. Growing up in Northampton, I was born in Scotland, but grew up in Northampton. But my favourite footballer, the one guy that it wouldn't matter if we lost, it wouldn't matter if we were playing badly, and a lot of times we did. He was the one guy that just lit everything up. Was Luis Suarez. I've never seen a better player for my team than Luis Suarez. He just, apart from when he was biting other people, trying to eat them, he was just, the things he could do, he was just so competitive, and the outrageous things he could do were just unbelievable. I would also shout out for Andy Robertson in the current Liverpool lineup. I adore Andy Robertson. He's so funny on YouTube. He's hilarious, especially the stuff he does with Trent. But as a player, he gives 100%. He's Scottish captain. Love him to bits. So Andy Robertson would be the second. And Alisson scoring that header. That was pretty amazing. And Harry Maguire for obvious reasons. You don't know him. You didn't know him before he.
No, I'm talking about Andy Robertson. I didn't know that he had a YouTube channel.
No, he did this thing. Oh, what was it called? Wingmen, I think it was. And it was a 2 series where it's him and Trent like in the car chatting, winding up people at the training ground. It's like one of the Liverpool behind the scenes kind of series.
Right. Okay.
And honestly, he's got a future in punditry, in comedy. He's just an absolute riot.
Yeah. I must admit, being a Man United fan, there's not many Liverpool players that you grow up to. Well, not many Liverpool players that you respect and admire. But yeah, he's, as a footballer, he's a good player, Andy Robertson. He's just 110% all the time. He loves it, doesn't he? And I think he's just the kind of person that fits Liverpool down to a T. But going back to Luis Suarez, as well, despite being a dirty, horrible, cheating, handballing, biting professional footballer, he was a good player. He was a very good player. Yeah, as a Man United fan, he's one of those that you love to hate him. You just love to hate him, don't you?
Yeah.
Right,
sure,
mate.
if he was on the opposition team, yeah.
Yeah. Phil, thanks so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this chat. I mean, we've been speaking for an hour and 20 minutes, and it's just been thoroughly entertaining. You've had me in stitches numerous times. So yeah, thanks very much for coming on, mate. I really appreciate that. For anyone who hasn't seen Phil's channel, please head over to Hybrid Me. He's got all sorts of videos on there related to golf simulators. He's got so much more knowledge than I have. He's so much more experienced. So yeah, definitely head over there. Have a look at the Hybrid Me website as well for any of your golf simulator needs too. So yeah, Phil, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really appreciate it.
I'm honoured to have been invited. That was very kind of you to do so. And I had a great time. And let's get a outdoor round of golf at some point. That'll be entertaining.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, we've spoken about this, haven't we? I'll head over your way and we'll get the cameras out and we'll see how good you are. We'll see how good you really are, Phil. None of this sim business. We'll see how good you really are.
No, sim business is my real golf. It's the outdoor stuff that's the fake stuff for me. All right, cheers, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Top man. Thanks very much, mate.
Thanks for watching. For more home golf simulator content, click on this video on the screen right now.